What's going on, everybody? Welcome back again to The Haunted Beard. My name is Jake. Well, one of my most anticipated movies of the year just became available on streaming, The Black Phone, and I finally got a chance to give it a watch. It was directed by Scott Derrickson, stars Ethan Hawke, and was adapted by a short story from Joe Hill, who, if you don't know, is the son of Stephen King. So I wanted to give you my thoughts. Let's get into it. The Black Phone tells the story of Finney, a 13-year-old boy who, after being abducted by a child killer and locked in a soundproof basement, starts receiving calls on a disconnected phone from the killer's previous victims. I'll start off with the positives, and the two big positives for me are two of the main acting performances. The first off, though, is the young girl who plays Finney's sister. Her name is Gwen, played by the actor Madeline McGraw. She is really good in this, and I think gives the best performance involving any of the kids in this movie. She's spunky, she's sassy, she don't take no crap, she's strong, she's determined. She's just a really good character. I really liked her. I enjoyed watching her every time she was on screen, and I just thought her performance all around was really good. She's funny, too. And I really liked her, and I think she's one of the highlights of the movie. The main highlight for me, though, is the performance from Ethan Hawke, and he's really why we're watching this. Even though the vast majority of his performance, he is wearing a mask, which, by the way, I'll give a little shout out to the mask design. There's kind of a couple variations of it, but whoever created and designed that mask, kudos to that person. I think the mask here is really creepy, and I like it quite a bit. But even with that mask on, I think Hawke's performance comes through, just does a really good job at just being, creepy and disturbing and scary. And he's not one we find out a whole lot about, but I think perhaps kind of keeping his background kind of mysterious and vague sort of only adds to the creep factor. And so every time Ethan Hawke is on screen, you're kind of just waiting for him to come back whenever he's not on screen, right? And so he's the highlight and the standout for me in this movie, and I think the main reason why we're watching. Unfortunately, though, those two highlights for me, those two standouts, are really about the only positive things I have to say about this. If I could kind of sum up my overall thoughts with this as a whole, it would be, it's all right, and that's pretty much it. In terms of just the story itself, I just really didn't get a whole lot out of it. I'll kind of start earlier on in the movie. The first 25 minutes are not very great, in my opinion. A lot of the performances out of the child actors are not great. And there's a particular scene in a bathroom where our main lead, played by the actor Mason Thames, I believe is his name, who he's pretty good in the movie, so I'll give him some props for that. But the majority of the other kid actors, there's a scene in a bathroom where he's getting bullied, and just the performances from the bullies and some of the kids here, and the dialogue is just kind of cringy and just not really good, unfortunately. There's a whole kind of aspect of this movie involving the main two brother and sister's father, played by Jeremy Davies, and he's this like abusive type father, and that whole aspect just didn't really work for me. And just the way it was portrayed, it just kind of came across as awkward and sort of weird. And I just feel like it didn't really land. Like, it just didn't really connect. And there's a scene where he's like whipping the daughter with a belt, and how you would typically expect to respond during that scene. The whole scene just kind of felt clunky and awkward, and just, it didn't really connect with me at all. The whole resolution when you get to the end of the movie, and he comes back and he sees his son and daughter in the ambulance, and he just like gets down on a knee and says, "I'm sorry," and like that's it. So like that's the resolution. There's just not really a good resolution to that kind of sort of storyline in the movie. Just that whole aspect just didn't really work for me very well at all. Now, our main character, Finney, he doesn't get abducted until about 25 to 30 minutes into the movie, and he gets abducted, he gets put down in the soundproof basement, and I paused the movie real quick because I like to take notes and just kind of, put ideas down on my phone. And I wrote this down right at about the 30-minute mark. I wrote this. I said, hopefully there is something more to the story than just now the kid has to escape and that's it. And more or less, that's pretty much all there is to the story. It occasionally cuts back, and you see his sister is out there looking for him, and that's pretty much it. They kind of add a bit of an element with the phone, right, and how he can talk to the victims, and that's cool, but it doesn't really provide anything outside of just a really sort of straightforward story. It's just this kid's down in the basement and he's got to figure out how to escape, and that's really it. I felt that the film was kind of lacking in kind of unexpected twists and turns or surprises or anything like that. I just felt that it really just kind of played out very kind of simple and straightforward, and there was nothing super surprising or special about it. We get a couple jump scares that don't really work all that great, where a couple of the ghosts from the boys who have been killed show up down in the basement, and it's just pretty standard. He's kind of looking around the room, sees one of the boys there, and you just get this blast of music. Nothing we haven't really seen before there. I really thought in the entire movie there's really only one like effective suspenseful scene, and that's where he finally gets out of the basement and has to walk by the grabber who's sleeping and get to this padlock to try to get out and make his escape. And that's really the only, like, I thought, really effective tension and suspenseful scene in the whole movie for me. It's a good scene, but that was really about it in terms of, like, kind of having me on the edge of my seat. That was really the only scene that did that for me. Now, as I said, I felt kind of overall the film really sort of lacked in any sort of surprising moments, and it does attempt to give us one where the two detectives show up at this guy's house, and he's kind of this sort of weird, almost conspiracy theorist type guy who's trying to figure out who the killer is, and the cops talk to him for a few minutes and then they leave. And then you find out that he is actually the grabber's brother, and the kid is down in the basement, only he doesn't know. And so it's kind of this, a little bit of a surprising moment, but at the same time, though, in terms of like the logistics of that, like, I don't know how you could be kidnapping kids and having them down in the basement with, like, your brother living in the house. It just seems like there's way too many sort of plot hole issues with that. Also, too, I feel like the only reason they sort of introduced that part is so we could actually end up getting one good on-screen kill, because towards the end of the movie, Max finds out that Finney, the kid, is down in the basement and that his brother's the one abducting him. And of course, his brother's there at the top of the stairs, comes down and, hits him in the head with the axe and kills him. We do get kind of a cool kill, but that's really the only on-screen kill that we get. And I feel like that whole kind of part of the story was set up just so we could get a cool axe to the skull kill, and it doesn't really serve any purpose beyond that. Now, regarding the sister Gwen, we find out that she has kind of this sort of supernatural, superpower type ability where sometimes her dreams come true. It's almost like she gets kind of these like prophetic visions where she can see things and gets information from her dreams, and sometimes they come true. And how they handle this aspect of the film is kind of just for me. We get to the point to where we're about 70 minutes into this 100-minute movie, and she's upset. She keeps having these prayers. She keeps going to God and saying, why'd you let this happen, and why aren't you showing me any stuff in my dreams where I can figure out what's going on? And then she finally has this vision, has this dream where she gets a number to an address, and to me, it's just, I feel like it's one of those sort of narrative techniques that screenwriters will do where it's like the only reason this is happening, it's just like, oh, what perfect timing. We're entering the third act of the movie, and now we need a character to have a realization or to get some information just so we can, progress towards the climax and the ending of the movie. And it just seems like this cheap sort of narrative storytelling technique that we've seen so many times that it just seems lazy to me. It's just like, oh, all of a sudden, here we go. Yep, it's that time of the movie. We better get the character this information so they can, go do what they got to do and solve the problem or whatever it is. And it just was kind of like, yeah, it feels lazy to me, and I just didn't like it. The finale of the movie is you get kind of the showdown between Finney and the Grabber, and really the whole movie it's almost kind of this like coming of age story. This 13-year-old boy who's bullied and picked on and made fun of and all that stuff has to learn how to stand up for himself and defend himself, and that's kind of really the overarching kind of character arc and sort of narrative arc of the story, and that's really what it's all about. And he has to finally, stand up and say enough is enough, and he goes after the Grabber. And the final scene of him kind of just sort of the smarts that he uses to kind of, I guess, outwit and outmaneuver him in that whole kind of fight showdown works pretty good for me. And that's more or less it. And as I said, I just feel like it doesn't really do a whole lot to kind of elevate itself above this type of movie. The narrative for me didn't really offer a whole lot in terms of suspense and tension or very many surprises or twists and turns. And so for me, at the end of the day, there are a couple really solid characters and performances, but that's really about the only thing for me that really stood out. And so I guess when all is said and done, I think this thing is pretty average overall. And so for me, I'm going to give this like a 5 out of 10. So those are my thoughts. Unfortunately, this one was a little bit of a disappointment for me, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. So anyways, that's all I got for you. Please let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of this thing. Would love to hear from you. And yeah, I will see you next time on The Haunted Beard.